Welcome back to another episode of Unchained with Pierre Wilson. I feel like it's been so long since I've talked to you guys. You guys have become like my family. This is like a therapy session with family that I love, right? That I get to enjoy talking to every week. Between the holidays and my family went through a rough bout of the flu. It's been tough. So I've been away for a couple weeks, but I promised you guys in episode one that I wasn't going anywhere and I'm still not going anywhere. And before we bring on my next guest, I want to just take a moment to just thank so many of you for tuning in each week. Obviously, the last guest we had was Brandon Tatum. That ended up being our highest watched episode on YouTube. So thank you guys for making that possible. Thank Brandon for coming on. To all the guests that have just contributed to helping to build this show week after week. I appreciate you guys so much. And then to, again, you, the audience, because none of this would be possible if you guys weren't willing to sit and listen to me. Thank you guys for doing that. But my next guest, I've been friends with her for so long. I've been a fan of hers for so long. And I actually, don't use the word fan often, but I am truly a fan of her. I've had a chance to kind of watch her rise. I remember when she had not so many followers, and yet she has a ton today, and she is one of the biggest stars in the conservative movement. And it's largely because she has been really authentic and true to herself and the things that God has told her to fight for, which includes standing up for the unborn. And as we all know, abortion is the leading cause of death in the Black community. And there is no better person to come on and talk about just the impact of it in our communities than Savannah Craven. So welcome, Savannah, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Pierre. Such kind words.
I mean every word. And for so long, Savannah, I remember when we talk about this a lot, right? I remember when you dropped that video and Be Like Candace, and every now and then we'll get you to still randomly rap it, right? But you've become so important to the conservative movement in so many ways. And that song, while still relevant, seems like it's just a small part of who you are because you've made yourself known in so many different ways. Talk to me a little bit really quickly just about your rise. Did you ever anticipate that you would be such an influential player in the conservative movement like you are today?
Definitely not. I started doing music. I basically have been doing theater and music my whole life. And whenever COVID happened and I was forced to move back to South Carolina from New York City because the city shut down, I was in musical theater college. I just decided, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put my voice out there. I had become very confident in my conservative and Christian values, and I decided to use my musical talent to write and produce a song. And all I wanted was for Candace Owens to see the song, but I had no idea that it was going to blow up and she was going to use it on her show. And I totally just owe it to Candace and the support of people like you, Pierre, and all of our Blexit family who believed in me from the very beginning.
Well, I mean, you're someone that's easy to root for, I must say. And you've always been super gracious, super kind, and very humble. And, I've been in this movement for a long time. Sometimes I step back and I'm like, my gosh, I feel like I've been doing this forever. But I've come across so many people, and I can easily say you're one of the most humble. You're so thankful for every opportunity that's given to you, even to this day. So if I could give you any advice, stay that way, because it's not enough people that are like that. But speaking of that song a little bit more, then I want to transition after that. But just take me back to the moment when you were writing that song. I know you said you wanted Candace to see it, but the message of that song, even though it's Be Like Candace, it really is about, to me, at least the way that I looked at it, was like, be more like a classy woman versus a Sexy Red or somebody, right? I don't know if Sexy Red was out back then, but there's plenty of Sexy Reds before Sexy Red. So it definitely seemed like it was pushing back against, can I say it, whole culture? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Was that kind of the message to say, hey, it's okay to be classy?
Yes, it was pushing back on the third wave feminism that is teaching women that it is, degrading to be submissive to her husband and to dedicate herself to one man for the rest of her life, and to be confident in, our femininity that we have, and that femininity is not something that shows weakness, that it should be suppressed. Women are strong, but God made man for a woman and woman for man, and they're meant to be together. And that is something that we shouldn't be embarrassed to speak about. And during the time, it wasn't Sexy Red, it was Cardi B. And the song came out at the perfect timing when Candace Owens and Cardi B were beefing on Twitter. And it was just a perfect response to all of the craziness that Cardi was throwing at Candace.
Yeah. Yeah, and it took off. I mean, that was like an anthem for so many people. And I commend you for being bold enough to actually stand up for something that I think is so important. I want to transition a little bit because you still work for Students for Life,
Yes.
and what led you to Students for Life?
Yes. So, as I said, during COVID times, I spending a lot of time on the internet, as we all were doing our research. And I came across this video actually that Live Action produced years ago with the help of my now friend James O'Keefe, founder of Project Veritas. He did an undercover video calling Planned Parenthoods, asking to fund an abortion specifically for a Black baby. And he was calling them all across the country, and they all were excited. I mean, it was really, really weird that they were like happy to make sure that this money for this abortion donation went toward a Black woman. And with all the rise of Black Lives Matter, I was like, well, an organization that says that they care about Black lives, they must be pro-life. And then I found out that one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter was actually best friends with one of the former Planned Parenthood presidents. And I just felt like I had to speak out. And I found a real belonging and just happiness within the pro-life movement, fighting for these innocent babies that don't have a voice. And with, as you mentioned in the intro, the number one killer of Black people being abortion, that could have easily have been me, you know? And I felt that it was my duty to now expose this racist organization of Planned Parenthood and this industry that has hurt our people for so long. And I found a lot of volunteer opportunities with Students for Life. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this my career. I want to do this. And now I do it in New York City, which some people think I'm crazy, but I love it.
Yeah, you've loved New York. Every time I speak to you about it. You talk about how you enjoy. Are you still enjoying New York?
Yes, I love it. It takes a different type of person to live here and like the lifestyle, but
Yeah.
it's great.
Well, you mentioned something I think is sad, but today is not completely shocking, which is that people almost what were celebrating the fact that they could support, killing a Black baby. Uh, do you think abortion really was targeting the Black community? I know you talk a lot about the roots. Give me your thoughts on that. Do you think it was meant to kind of target the Black community?
Yes, absolutely. Planned Parenthood was originally, it was a project founded by Margaret Sanger. Started by Margaret Sanger. She wanted to make sure that minorities, people with disabilities, and especially people of color were set apart from the rest of society. She met up with these Black pastors and she told them, you need to provide birth control to your parishioners. And this was to make sure that they stopped reproducing. And that's what abortion is all about, is this population control. That if we tell people that having a child is going to ruin your dreams, it's not going to help you to have a better life down the road, that they're only a burden on you, that you can have this financial and, physical freedom. And it's just not true. A lot of women unfortunately buy into the lie of feminism, and then they get to the point where they're 40 or 50 years old. They've realized that they've only been submissive to their boss for the past 20, 30 years, and then they have nothing. They don't have a husband, they don't have children, and they're alone. And that is something that we need to fight against. We see the reality that having a family is the greatest thing that you can do. The best thing in life, the most extraordinary thing, is an ordinary woman, an ordinary man, and their ordinary children.
Yeah. What's so sad too, because obviously through Brexit, we do a lot of work in minority America, Black and Hispanic America. And one of the things that we've encountered, especially when the topic of abortion comes up, and I don't know if you encounter this often too, but people are really not educated on what is really taking place. It's almost like they just wanted to be a part of something. There was a lot of people that we spoke to that just heard something from their mom or their friends and, oh, women's empowerment, oh, hands off my body, and these catchy phrases, and they just joined because it felt good, not even really actually doing the research and looking into things. Like you just said, what was the purpose behind Planned Parenthood? Who is this really targeting, right? They don't know any of that information. Do you find that to be something that you come across a lot too? People are uneducated about abortion?
Definitely. When I'm working with students on campus and people come up to our tables and ask, why are we out here today? Why do we care so much about what another woman does with her body? Well, the reality is we don't care what another woman does with her body. But in an abortion and when a woman is pregnant, there are now two bodies, and both of them deserve the basic human right to life. That is what's written in our Constitution. And your rights end when another person's rights begin. I tell this to my students. There's a reason why we can't smoke outside of a hospital, within a certain number of feet. And there's a reason why we can't get in a car drunk and then drive and then not expect to reap the consequences of doing so, because our actions can affect other people. And these preborn humans, they don't have a voice. And so therefore we need to speak up. And as a Christian, we are told to speak up for the vulnerable. We are taught to hate the sin, not the sinner. And for those who say, well, who are you to judge? Well, Jesus says, based not on appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. And Jesus would have told these people that what they were doing is wrong. And then he would also have sat with them and showed them the way. And that is what we need to be doing.
Yeah. I think we need more people out there like yourself. I do believe that the pro-life movement is strong. Obviously, we saw a lot of change happen over the last couple of years, but I still think it could be stronger. I feel like there's a lot of individuals out here, a lot of people, especially a lot of women, because a lot of women, obviously, on the left, who identify with the left, are the main ones I think that are leading this charge. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some men out there that baffle me. I'm like, okay, you're what a beta, but ultimately, I do think it's a lot of individuals who are uneducated, uninformed. You go onto college campuses. I think you mentioned that you talk to students. You have not always had the best time, though. I'm right. You've had some situations. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like to talk about something that people view as so controversial on a space like a college campus, where it's already walking into a lion's den from the moment you walk in there as a conservative.
Right. It is definitely a battlefield going out onto these campuses, especially the college campuses. I mean, I'm in abortion loving part of the country. The abortion capital of the country is where I'm situated in. And just right this past month, during the election, they decided to pass Proposition 1 that made abortion legal through all 9 months in New York. There's not a lot that we can do at this point, and that is why, legislatively, but what we can do is speak out in our communities and on our college campuses. I have been mobbed, I've been spit on, I've been hit, I have been told that I should be raped, that I am a horrible human being. And I just I have to remind myself that they're not mad at me. They're mad that abortion harms women and it harms children as well. And the controversy that I am exposing is abortion. I am not the controversy myself. And so I don't take literally anything personally when going out on campuses. And I think that is what helps me to just keep going, because I do this every day. And I help to inspire my students to do the same.
So for someone who's in the audience who's watching this right now and they're listening to you and they're saying, man, I'm really inspired by her. She is advocating for something that I care about as well. But I've put up a Facebook or Instagram post and I got reamed and destroyed and family members deleted me. And that was all I did. I didn't even do half of what Savannah has done. What do you say to them? Because you've been doing it for a long time, but I'm sure there has been moments where it wasn't easy for you. Has it gotten easier over time? I mean, abortion can get you hurt. I mean, people fight. I've seen people physically assaulted simply because they're saying we want to stand up for the rights of the unborn, right? So what do you say to someone who's like, man, Savannah, I hear you and I'm so inspired, but I don't know if I can be as bold as you.
Yes, you definitely can, is what I have to say to people, is that you have to realize that you're fighting for something bigger than just followers, likes, approval. You're fighting for the lives of these innocent babies that don't have anyone else to fight for them. And if you lose friends, they were never really your friend. It's crazy that we live in a world where the wildest thing that you can say is, I don't like abortion because it kills innocent human beings. And we accept all of these other things in our society. We try to normalize, the use of drugs and this crazy music that we listen to nowadays. 3-year-olds having phones and being able to have social media as, a young child. All of these things we normalize, but then we think it's so crazy that we want to defend life in the womb. We've gone so far left in our society, and we have to stand up as people who have been awakened. I know that they use the term woke with some of these people on the left, but we are awakened here on, this pro-life side of things. And we need to show people the right way, lead people away from the slaughter.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, one of the arguments we often hear from the left, for those who try to justify their reasoning for abortion, is they'll say something like, well, conservatives only care when the baby is in the womb, but they don't care when the baby is born. What is your response to people who feel that way? And are they right to a certain extent?
Well, they're definitely not correct. And I will tell you why. Is life affirming federally qualified health centers and pregnancy centers outnumber Planned Parenthood's 14-1. And they offer everything and more that a Planned Parenthood offers. They just don't kill babies. And these are people that they have dedicated their lives to helping women and low-income people in need to have the health care that they deserve. And you providing abortion and telling a woman that the only way she can achieve her dreams is to end the life of her child, to choose, do you want to keep your child alive or do you want to kill your child? That is not compassionate. We have gone so far away from a loving, mindful society where we just say, well, you got to choose one or the other. You got to be selfish. And there are so many people out there that I have met that have gone through an abortion and they said, I never knew that there were these pregnancy centers. And it's because it's not what's popular. It's not what we see in the media. There's so much misinformation spread about these pregnancy centers that they're going to try to, play mind games with you, but that's really what Planned Parenthood does. They deceive and they lie because they have to. Their agenda is so extreme that they have to lie about the people who actually want to care for them.
Yeah. And in another episode, we spoke about people who, trans people or people who transitioned and then they had regret and they wish they had never done it because they had done it at a young age. I think there's a lot of people who had abortions who have regret. And I know a few, right? And some of them are some of the most outspoken people today saying, hey, like there's other ways, similar to what you're saying, there's other ways. You don't have to do that, because they know what they have done and they know how it weighs on them. So I think for people out there who think, oh, it's just like, I want to get an abortion and call it a day, like that's not always it, right? So no, I appreciate what you're doing in this fight. It's so important and you are unwavering. I'll tell you why now. I always laugh because we could give you, I know you do, for those who don't know, Savannah does our Educate to Liberate tour stops for Blexit as well. And I always laugh because I'm like, I know when I watch some footage of Savannah, there's going to be an abortion question somewhere in there because she's not playing around. She's going to find a way to make sure we bring up this topic, and everything that you do, you find a way to bring it up. And I think that's what makes you you, though, because this is a topic that some people will say, oh, let's avoid. I've literally had people, during my time in the movement to say, oh, we want to avoid this, but you will run headfirst towards it. And I think that's really what's making you you, Savannah. So kudos to you on that. I want to switch gears really quick because Trump just got elected, right? How are you feeling? What are your thoughts? Do you think this is obviously a good thing? Obviously, this is a great thing for the country, but what are your thoughts on Trump getting reelected? Do you expect to see more progress in the pro-life movement? How do you feel?
I'm feeling very hopeful and excited. I know that JD Vance, he's a recent Catholic convert, and part of being a Catholic is being very pro-life. And I hope that they educate themselves more, both Vance and Trump, on the sanctity of human life and the development of children in the womb, because they both did run on, accepting abortion through a certain extent. And as we know, it doesn't matter what size a child is in the womb. The value is there from the moment of conception. And although it's up to the states, I hope that Trump will, and Vance will encourage these states to protect children in the womb from the moment that they are conceived. I know that a lot of people thought, well, he needed to compromise a bit to win, but we can't compromise on, basic human rights. And that's how I feel about it. But I'm looking forward to a more secure border. I'm looking forward to all of this crazy transgenderness in the schools being completely outlawed. I hope that he does the things that he ran on and that he says he's going to do.
Yeah. I know Florida, we delivered on abortion. I was happy to be a small part of that as well. My wife and I advocated so much to make sure, or really educated. I won't even say advocated. I would say we helped educate so many people, even outside of my daily work life with Brexit. Right, we got really involved with the Young Republicans down here, and a lot of other different groups, and we just did some stuff on our own, just some own connections that we know, and we were so happy when we saw that coming on election night. And I know you had a big part in that too. It's called because of everything that you've done online and all the events that you've done to really share the message. So I'm sure you were happy when you saw that come through here in Florida. But you mentioned a secure border. That is something that I'm looking forward to too, because ultimately I think part of helping, moms, and I know there's groups and guys, for everybody who's watching, we're gonna grab some links and resources from Savannah, and we'll drop those in the comments for you guys so you can go look at some of the things that she's saying for a mother who's out there that may be expecting and maybe like, where do I go? We're gonna try to have some links for you available here in the comment section, but it'll go a long way of helping not only veterans and other people in this country, but moms who are expecting, who may need resources, by closing our border and putting the money back into our country. We're spending so much money right now on foreign countries and people that are invading. I think it's free healthcare for illegal immigrants, all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's just too much money flowing in too many different directions when there's so many people here that need to be helped. So for people who are out there saying, well, how come you guys can't do more for us? Well, it starts with doing things like that too, also closing our border, right? So we can help fund more of these groups that Savannah has been mentioning. One of the things that I'm looking forward to as well is really just hopefully a return to sanity. And I think that's really actually, what are you looking forward to? A return to sanity, like you said, the transgender stuff, all the stuff that they're doing to our kids, all this nonsense, like, where are we going, right? This country is not going the right direction, and we need to reverse course quickly. I think this was a very consequential election for sure. I know they said about every single one, but man, it's gotten bad. Is that just me, Savannah, or did you feel the same way?
Yes, and this is what happens when you run on abortion extremism, and when you run on, that you're going to allow for free transgender surgeries in the military. People got really fed up with the Kamala Waltz ticket, and they were like, no, this is a joke. I mean, Kamala couldn't answer basic questions. She dodged almost every major interview, and people were over it. She wasn't a good presidential pick, and they went on and on about how much they can't stand old white men, and then Kamala chooses an old white man for her running mate. It was just a joke. And I was like, do they really want to win? I was thinking that when Trump won, I think Kamala was like, whew, don't have to do that. Responsibility taken away. And it was just, it was probably like the worst ticket that the Democratic Party could have chosen. But they run on skin color and gender and extremism, and people were fed up. And that is why we had Trump win in what I would argue is, a good landslide. It happened very quickly. They were deciding states left and right. I was watching the night of the election, and we have the House and Senate. And usually you'd kind of want that diversity with the House and Senate, maybe have, a Republican House and then a Democratic Senate, but people were just over it. And that's why we won all the way.
Yeah, and I was so thrilled. We were up watching, obviously, into the early mornings, but I remember all the pundits saying, oh, this thing might last, until the end of the week. We have to count all these votes, and we don't know. It may not be a clear winner. It became pretty clear pretty quickly, and that was a very exciting. Yeah, I mean, when it started, when I think what was Georgia called, North Carolina, when that started flowing, and next thing Pennsylvania, I was like, oh, it's over. I mean, at that point, it was over, right? So, a really great night, and you're right. I think what they did with Kamala Harris uh, to me, hopefully, is a shift for the Democrat Party. I don't know. I just don't have much faith in them. I hope they look at this election and say maybe we are moving a little bit to the left too much. We're becoming a bit too extreme. I don't have that much faith that they will say that. They'll probably double down knowing them and say, oh, we got to do it more.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
people are rejecting it. And someone said, I mentioned this on another show, someone said, oh, it's because she's a woman. But, black men, for example, a lot of black men shifted away from the Democrats for the first time, Hispanic men. And they said, oh, it's because she's a woman. And what I normally say to counteract that is that Hillary got more of the black male vote and more of the Hispanic male vote than Kamala did, and she was a white woman. So what you really can't justify it from that. She was a horrible candidate, and I think the country really is just tired. If there's a word that we can say, they're tired of the nonsense, tired of all of it. And I think people wanted a return to some sense of normalcy. And it's just so funny because they painted Trump as a chaotic person, but yet he felt like the normal person in this election.
Definitely. And I think you touched on black men. People saw that video where Obama was basically talking down to that big group of black men saying, I'm not very happy seeing that there's such low turnout for Kamala. It's like, because you guys make everything about race and you act as if black people and minorities cannot think for themselves. People care more about whether they're going to be able to feed their family, go to the grocery store, and not spend $500 a week on groceries, rather than worrying about transing illegal immigrants and helping queer people in the military. There are bigger issues than that for our country. And that's what people chose, is what's really important for the average person.
Yeah. Well, Savannah, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? Your star is so bright. Obviously, I think you're still at the beginning. I don't even think you've reached the peak of where God is taking you. So what's next for Savannah?
Thank you. Well, I have lots of plans for next year. I'm getting married at the end of this year, so that's exciting. And not planning on a family right away, but it's all up to God. But I hope that I can continue to use my voice through Blexit and Turning Point USA to spread this message and just empower women to be happy in their femininity, to embrace their fertility. It's not something that needs to be oppressed and suppressed as well. We just need to be proud of being happy feminine women and speaking out for what we believe in.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I'm going to be right there rooting you on every single step of the way. And hopefully you will come back on the show, Savannah. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And it's refreshing to talk to someone like Savannah because she's so kind, so sweet, but at the same time, she does not play. And I mean that when it comes to the values and standing up for the unborn, the values she believes in and standing up for the unborn. And it's such an important issue. Arguably the most important issue of our time is protecting innocent babies, right? Who so many people just kind of treat like out of sight, out of mind, right? But would you stand over your child and would you kill that child that's laying on a couch in front of you? Would you stand over that child and would you kill them? Right? We would look at that person as a cold-blooded murderer if they did that, but yet we don't think that it's murder when you kill an innocent child in the womb. And so I think it's so refreshing. And I know on this show I've been being very honest with you guys, very blunt, and I'll double down on this. I won't mention any names, but I've been told plenty of times through the years, stay away from abortion, don't talk about that. And I thought it was a bunch of crap, right? I don't think that God got me involved to stay away from certain things. No, I think I'm involved in this movement because he wanted me to speak out about things. And that is why this episode was so important and to have her on. So if you're someone out there, whether you're a single mother, whether you're pregnant, whatever the situation is, know that there is resources, there is help. You do not have to look at a child as a burden. Like I said, we're going to drop some links in the chat, but make sure you also follow Savannah. We'll throw her socials in the chat as well. And she can also help and share. She always is sharing resources. So follow people like Savannah, of course, follow other people like her Students for Life groups that are actually working hard to support mothers. There is help out there for you. Until next time, you guys, God bless.